Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Go to my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings or tomorrow, just really depends whenever you're watching this. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPinell16. And if you want access to some of my extra content, the link is in the description below for my Patreon. I have my entire MLB sheet posted. It's got projections on there. It's an all-in-one stats database, so it's just to help you really not have to go tab to tab each day. I know, you'll have your Vegas tab open, you'll have your lineups tab open. It's got everything you need on there, all the splits you need. And I also have access to my Slack chat where you can ask me all the questions you want, bug me as much as you want all day. I have no problem with it, and it's just a bunch of good group. It's a good group of guys in there, though. It's a fun place to hang out during the games. A lot of jokes in there. Nothing intimidating. No one's ever gonna make fun of you. You can send your own lineups in. I can review them and tell you what I would change or what I wouldn't change. So yeah, that's enough of that. That is in the link in the description below if you are interested. So anyway, let's get into this main slate. I'm glad it's not a split main slate day because usually on the Saturday we have an early main slate and a late main slate, which means double the work for me. So I'm glad we just have one. So anyway, let's get into the cheat sheet. I got three pitchers I'm pretty interested in tomorrow. We have Walker Buehler up top at 10,900 versus San Diego. Aaron Nola at 10,100 versus the White Sox. And then a surprise here, Aaron Sanchez at 5,300. And I will get into those guys now. So let's do a little preview of the pitching sheet. So this is available on Patreon if you are interested. So we have Walker Buehler up top at 10,900. So he's been great this year. 3.43 xFIP, 27% K rate, only a 4% walk rate. So he's not walking a lot of guys. He's striking out a good amount of guys, and he's not giving up a lot of runs. So really, what's not to like here? And we're in pitcher-friendly park in LA, and going against the San Diego team who does like to strike out a lot versus righties. If we look at their splits, they're a team you want to play. You want to use righty pitchers versus, as they have been much worse versus them. As you see, we have the overall matchup info, the opponent splits versus lefties, and the opponent splits versus righties. And they have just overall worse numbers versus righties. A 26.1% K rate, which is near tops in the league, just outside of Detroit versus righties. And then, it's a decent team ISO at 180, so there is a little bit of power in there. And guys like Machado, Renfroe, not Tatis anymore. Yes, Tatis, not Reyes anymore. And because he's off the team, so you have to assume that ISO goes down a little bit once that starts to update. And then they have a 307 WOBA versus righties, 90 WRC plus. So really just average numbers in the power department, and then a really high K rate at 26%. So I do think this is a really good matchup for Walker Buehler. He's going to come in a pretty good favorite, and it's just a good play all around. I have nothing against him. He's just really expensive, but with the SP2 option we have, I don't think he's going to be that hard to fit in. So anyway, let's talk about my actual favorite pitcher on the slate, just based off of salary. I love Walker Buehler a lot, but I think Aaron Nola comes in at a better value at 10,100 going up against the White Sox, who are striking out a ton versus right-handed pitching this season. Aaron Nola has not been as good as Walker Buehler this season, but he's got good stuff. He's been turning around after his awful start to the season, which was a long time ago. He's got 3.97 xFIP, 26% K rate. The walk rate's up at 9%, which is concerning. That's over double Walker Buehler's walk rate. So that can lead him to some trouble sometimes, but overall his numbers are pretty good, and this White Sox team does not scare me at all. If we look at their splits versus right-handed pitching this season, you're going to see a lot of the same as San Diego. They kind of have similar matchups where both teams are striking out a lot versus righties. So if we get all the way over here, it's a really good matchup for Nola. 26% K rate for the White Sox versus righties. Very low team ISO at 149. Low team WOBA below 300 and only an 86 WRC plus. So I do like Aaron Nola quite a bit tomorrow, and you get 800 salary savings off of Walker Buehler, which I do think can come in handy because this is a Coors Field slate. There's a lot of good offenses, just like yesterday. So I would take all the savings I can get, and I do think they finish in similar territory for points scored tomorrow. And let's get on to my SP2 tomorrow, and that is going to be Aaron Sanchez. I know he's been a trash can this year, except for the last two games. And he got traded to Houston. What happens when pitchers go to Houston? They ball out for some reason. Justin Verlander was awful in Detroit, and then he went to Houston. Justin Verlander was terrible for like a year in Detroit. Before that, he was obviously lights out. But he got traded to Houston, and he balled out. Garrett Cole was good in Pittsburgh, but then he turned into an elite pitcher in Houston. Charlie Morton, he turned really good in Houston. Obviously, now he's in Tampa, but when pitchers go to Houston, they get really good. So, I know it's like right away, but I don't know what it is. But although I will say this is mostly just because Aaron Sanchez has turned the corner the past 2 games, and just I feel good about pitchers pitching in Houston. It's a pretty good matchup versus the Mariners. If you look at their splits versus righties, they are striking out at a pretty decent clip. If I can pull it up here. Sorry, it takes a while. There's a lot of stuff in here, so a lot of scrolling. But go to their splits versus righties. As you can see, they have a 24% K rate to right-handed pitching. I will say the power is a little bit of a concern. So guys like Daniel Vogelbach, J.P. Crawford's not a power guy, but he is a pretty good lefty on that team. And there's some other guys that are on the team like lefties that are a little bit concerning. But I'm really just here for a good amount of strikeouts and maybe a run or two given up. And I think he can have a pretty good game. I just like the last 2 games he's had, and hopefully he can turn that into Houston. I know he's going to want to have a really good first start for them. And he's a heavy favorite. I believe well, I don't know if it's heavy. I know he's a decently sized favorite. I want to say it's around -200 if I am correct. I might be a little bit wrong there, but I did take a glance at Vegas website, so I know he is a favorite. And only 5,300. I'm only asking for really anywhere from 10 to 15 points, and he has shown 20-point upside this season. So I will take a shot at Aaron Sanchez tomorrow. I think he's a pretty good SP2 option, and I can imagine that he will carry some ownership tomorrow. But I mean, if you look at his overall numbers, they're not the best, but I do think he's worth a shot at 5,300. So anyway, that's my opinion on pitching tomorrow. If I have another guy pop up on my model, I was obviously add that onto the sheet during the updates. I did add Jason Vargas on my updates yesterday, which saved me off the mats. I still did play Steven Matz. He was cruising for a while, and then he got absolutely shelled for 5 runs that one inning. But I did end up a little bit heavier on Jason Vargas. He was popping up on the model better, so that ended up working out a little bit. If Coors doesn't wake up, though, it's going to be a bad night for me. I know Trevor Story's really the only guy that's done anything. Charlie Blackmon flew out to the warning track twice. Arenado flew out to the warning track once. So hopefully they can get a couple extra feet of power in them. That'd be really nice. So hopefully they're doing that right now. I haven't looked at my phone in a while. But anyway, on to the catcher position. I like Mitch Garver at 5,200 versus Danny Duffy. Mitch Garver has been elite versus left-handed pitching this season. He's got an ISO around 400, and the Twins are very good versus lefties. And Danny Duffy does give up some power to right-handed bats, and the Twins just crush at home. They've been crushing all season, so I do like Mitch Garver quite a bit. He's just very expensive. Then we got JT Realmuto at 4,500 versus Ross Detweiler, who has been very, very bad versus right-handed bats this season. So I do like the Phillies as a pretty good stack tomorrow. Then Jeff Mathis, if we need a punt, I ended up adding him to the sheet before lock yesterday. Just in the lineup, betting at 2,000 min salary in Texas. That just screams value, and he's better versus lefties. I know Matthew Boyd's a pretty good pitcher with a good strikeout rate, but he's been hittable recently. And at only 2K, we only need a hit to pay off our salary. He's going to allow us to spend up on some other bats. And at first base, we have Carlos Santana at 4,600. The Indians continue to hit. They've been really good the past month, and they've been carrying it into August so far. I shouldn't say really so far. They just one good game versus... they had a good game versus Urquidy, and a good game last night versus Taylor Cole and Dylan Peters. But Urquidy might have been in July 31st, but... Either way, they've been really good the past month, and I do like the lefties versus Felix Pena, who's a big splits guy. He's pretty good versus righties, but when it comes to the lefties, he's pretty bad, allowing a lot of power. So, give me all the lefties on Cleveland, and they have quite a few of them. Then Rhys Hoskins at 4,600 versus Detweiler. I love all the righties versus him. I do like the Phillies a lot tomorrow. And then Brandon Belt at 4K. He's kind of disappointing me right now. I think he's only got 2 points, which sucks, but at only 4K leading off versus John Gray and Coors Field, he makes a lot of sense. He's been pretty good versus righties. John Gray is, in his career, worse versus lefties, so I do like Brandon Belt. It's just a good way to get Coors exposure. And then at second base, we got Jose Altuve. He had a really good game last night. He's just been so good versus lefties this season. He's going to be facing another one. I believe he has the highest WRC plus in the league versus left-handed pitching. I believe he's tied with JD Martinez, actually, but that's pretty insane. So I do like Jose Altuve a lot versus the lefty. I think the Astros are in a good spot. They're just so good versus left-handed pitching. Scooter Gennett, 3,600. He's sucking right now. So, another guy. But I don't mind going back to the well here. And I know John Gray did pitch a pretty good game in Coors last time versus the Dodgers, which obviously is a much tougher matchup than these Giants. But I'm going to side with this being Coors Field. And the Giants smashed at Coors last time they were there. They were scoring a lot of runs. So Don't mind Scooter Gennett. He's probably going to be batting 6th, which I know he's projected. I said he was projected to bat 4th yesterday. It ended up not working out. Ended up batting 6th, but it's still a good value, so don't mind that. And then Kevon Biggio at 4,500 versus Dylan Bundy. Now, Dylan Bundy, we never know what we're going to get with him. He's a guy that's either going to come out, have a good game, get a lot of strikeouts, or he's going to get blown up. And honestly, I don't know what he's going to be like, but I do prefer the lefties versus him in terms of them not being able to, in terms of him not being able to strike out lefties as much. His strikeout rate versus righties are at a 29% clip, but to lefties it's at an 18% clip. And Kevon Biggio has been very good versus righties this season. I will say Dylan Bundy has given up more power to righties this season than lefties, but the lefties can still get to him. And really the only righty I'd be targeting is Bo Bichette, which we'll get into in a little bit. And I guess Vlad, but he didn't really make the sheet, but I do think he's in play. But we'll get to that soon. And at third base, we have Nolan Arenado at 5K. He's going off versus lefty in Madison Bumgarner. I shouldn't say he's going off. I hope he goes off, but he's going to be facing off versus Madison Bumgarner, the lefty. The Rockies have good history versus Madison Bumgarner just because of, I should say Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story. That's just because they've seen a lot of Madison Bumgarner in Coors Field, and these guys smash left-handed pitching. So if I have to pick between the two of Arenado and Story, obviously give me Arenado, as Trevor Story has been much better versus right-handed pitching this season, and we know Arenado is one of the best players in the league versus left-handed pitching. So love Arenado. He's coming at a reduced price tag at 5K. Usually he's around 5,500 in Coors, so don't mind going with Arenado. And then Jose Ramirez at 4,600. Love all the lefties versus Felix Pena, and Jose Ramirez is a much better hitter from the left side of the plate. And he just missed a home run or two. He just missed a home run. I was watching the game when I was doing my sheet, and he ripped 2 balls foul after he got like a double. So do you like J-Ram versus Felix Pena? I know that had nothing to do at all with this matchup, but I just thought I'd say that, because I know he was a little bit cold before that. I want to say he was 0 for his last 11, if I heard that right on the broadcast. And then Alex Bregman at 4,400 versus Marco Gonzalez. I love all the righties on the Astros. Bregman's been elite versus left-handed pitching this season and in his career. So I do like the Astros. Then Trevor Story, I already kind of mentioned him. He's really expensive. And again, if I have to pick between the two of Story and Arenado, give me Arenado. But I do think Story's in a good spot as well, because he's just been always good versus lefties in his career, just a little bit down this season. Then Bo Bichette at 4,300. He keeps producing. I believe he had a double tonight. He might have done something else since last time I looked, but I'm just going to keep playing him when he's this cheap. He's one of the best prospects, and he's going to be leading off versus Bundy, who has been giving up more power to righties, so he makes a lot of sense. And then Francisco Lindor at 5,300. Again, another lefty versus Felix Pena. He's going to be leading off, and if you're stacking the Indians, obviously you cannot leave him off your stacks. Then in the high-end outfield, we have Mike Trout at 5,700. Now, he's my favorite play of the day tomorrow. I know there's Coors on the slate, but I want Mike Trout versus Adam Plutko. Mike Trout homer tonight. And I definitely think he's going to homer again versus Plutko. A reverse splits righty and going against reverse splits righty and Mike Trout. So I love when these two things coincide. So Mike Trout's smashing righties this season. He got a 390 ISO versus them, and Plutko's giving up it's either a 300 ISO or a really high 280 ISO versus righties. So this is a perfect matchup for Mike Trout. Plutko is nothing special, doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. So give me all the Mike Trout I can get tomorrow. The Nelson Cruz 5,200. He went deep against Glenn Sparkman tonight, and he gets a really good matchup versus Danny Duffy. Nelson Cruz is one of the best players in the league versus left-handed pitching. He's pretty much a lock to do something versus lefties, so I do like Nelson Cruz a lot tomorrow. And then Shohei Ohtani, 5,100. I know I said Plutko's a reverse splits guy, but that doesn't mean he's any good versus lefties either. He's just more substantially worse versus righties. So give me Shohei Ohtani for how good he is versus right-handed pitching. Then in the mid-range outfield, we have Hunter Pence at 4,500. He's been awesome versus lefties this season. I feel like I keep saying all these guys are good versus lefties, but it's just true. And I have another one coming up too in Ian Desmond. But yeah, Hunter Pence, great versus lefties this season. Matthew Boyd has regressed a little bit, and we're in a hitter-friendly park in Texas. So do like Hunter Pence. And Ian Desmond, 4,300, a really cheap part of this I almost said Rocky Brewer stack for this Rockies stack going against Bumgarner. Ian Desmond's been much better versus lefties in this season and his career, so I do like Ian Desmond. He should be batting around 5th or 6th, hopefully 5th. And then Jock Peterson at 4,200, leading off versus Cal Quantrill. He's been much worse versus lefties this season. Lower strikeout rate, higher ISO, and Jock Peterson, we all know, is very good versus righties. And he's going to be leading off, and he's really cheap. So I do like Jock Peterson. Then in the value outfield, Aaron Judge at 4K versus the lefty Brian Johnson. He is going to possibly be the highest owned player tomorrow, and I am all for that. I do have him as a core play. It just makes a lot of sense. I don't understand the pricing on this. Brian Johnson's not any good, so give me all the Aaron Judge I can handle. Then Justin Upton, same reasons as Mike Trout, obviously, but Justin Upton is obviously not Mike Trout, but Justin Upton's been pretty good versus righties this season, not as good versus lefties, so it's got two reverse splits guys lining up again, so I do like Justin Upton. He's very cheap too. And then if we go to some of the core plays and top stacks, I have a lot of top stacks there, so I apologize, but all these guys look good to me, so I had to put them down. But core plays, Aaron Nola at 10,100. You could really replace him with Walker Buehler, but I prefer Nola, the savings we get with Nola. And then we have Trout and Judge in the outfield. And if we're going to use Aaron Sanchez, you can afford Mike Trout, so don't complain about that. And then the top stacks are going to be cores, so Giants and Rockies. They're all great plays for obvious reasons. They're going to be chalk and cash. It's kind of where you got to go in cash. Although I will say Madison Bumgarner being on the mound, it's not like he's a gas can or anything, so it bring their ownership a little bit down. But I do think they're excellent plays. And then the Indians going against Felix Pena, the Yankees versus Bryant Johnson, the Blue Jays Orioles game. I think that could be high scoring. And then the Astros versus Marco Gonzalez, the Twins versus Danny Duffy. And then to round it all out, we have the Phillies versus Ross Detweiler. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on all the new videos. Really appreciate that. We got NASCAR tomorrow. And yeah, that's going to be it. So remember, if you want the extra content, the link is in the description below for Patreon. And I wish you guys the best of luck tomorrow and a good start to the weekend, which I guess, no, Friday's not technically the weekend. Yeah, anyway, yeah, best of luck tomorrow.